Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Riverfront. It's a very special edition of the Riverfront, as far as I'm concerned. We've talked off and on, obviously, over the last few weeks and months about the big billboard campaign. I like showing this picture, so I'm going to show it again. The Sell the Team Bob billboard. And, as we did this, fundraising campaign, and I have with me today three people who helped us along that route to the billboard, supported the campaign, and I wanted to just talk about this a little bit, and really want to talk about what motivates someone to, like I did, to contribute to this campaign, where you are as a Reds fan, and how the current state of the Reds is affecting you. And so I'll just introduce our guest to you. First is Pat Rigsby. Pat, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. Glad to have you here. Next, hailing right now from, I think, Tampa, Florida, is Will. How are you, Will?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Originally from the great state of Ohio, but he's down there with the warm weather now. And then finally, friend of the podcast for a long time now, Sydney. How are you today, Sydney?
Good. How are you?
Doing very well. So, if you don't mind, we'll just kind of go around, and I've talked about how I became a Reds fan many times here on this show, and how I'm just kind of stuck with this team, for better or for worse, unfortunately. Pat, how is this a lifelong thing with you? How'd you become a Reds fan?
For as long as I can remember. I mean, growing up in Portsmouth, Ohio, Don Gullett was from right around the area. Growing up, a Johnny Bench fan, Tom Seaver fan, and then as I got older, getting to know guys like Gene Bennett, who played a big part in shaping a lot of the most successful Reds teams there. I don't know that there was any other option from my first day as a baseball fan.
Yeah, that's a common tale for many of us. We were destined to be Reds fans because of forces outside of our control. For me, it was my father, my grandfather, and just that's what we did. So, what about you, Will? How did this thing become an obsession for you?
I grew up just south of Dayton, and I think my first memory of the Reds was probably in 1990 when they won the World Series, and I was just a huge fan ever since. Big fan of those teams with Chris Sabo, Barry Larkin, Eric Davis. Those guys got me hooked, and that's where I started.
Yeah, they kind of reeled you in, and little did you know what was going to happen for the next quarter century, right?
Yeah.
And Sydney, we've talked before, but you are you're one of this, what I call the lost generation of Reds fans, right? Who has not experienced very much success, right?
Yeah. So I am definitely part of that lost generation. I was not alive for 1990. I was born in 2000, so I don't know much Reds success. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't really that big of a Reds fan when the early 2010s Reds were happening, like 2010, 2012, 2013, those teams, which had, in my opinion, good success, but not good postseason success. So during my lifetime, the Reds they've had good teams, but not great teams, and have not actually done anything in the postseason. And consistently now, since Castellini has bought them, consistently just go from, we want to be good to, we're rebuilding, or strapped for cash. And that's just what I know of the Reds. I mean, I'm from south of Dayton, just like you will, and my dad was a diehard Reds fan, so was his parents, and I was just born into this thing. And so, yeah, that's my experience as a Reds fan.
Yeah, I talked to fans, and at this point, we're talking about a generation that are starting to get up in age a little bit. I think fondly, obviously, of 1990. I came along, basically as a fan right after the Big Red Machine. I was born in the middle of the Big Red Machine, but I didn't. I heard about it from my dad, my grandfather, and Johnny Bench, and Pete Rose and Joe Morgan. That's what you hear all the time. And then through the 80s, the Reds were not good when I first started being a fan of the team. But then, they were in the mix for, 4 straight years under Pete. They finished second place. And then we had 1990, which for me as well. That's what, I was in high school, and that's what cemented it for me was that 1990. But even, probably my favorite Reds team was 95, which, lost in the National League Championship Series to Atlanta. And so, and that's the last time the Reds won a playoff series. There are a lot of fans who became fans after 1995, and I'm not sure why anyone would become a fan these days. Right? Exactly, Sydney. I don't understand how there's so little how ownership and management these days can just kind of ignore the fact that they're just turning fans away every day. Now, but Pat, I guess Will mentioned what his favorite moment was as a Reds fan. What's your favorite moment? Is it this? For me, it's the same. Mine's the 1990 World Series, and that
yeah, and I'm sure this dates me a little bit, but I graduated in 1990 from high school, and I remember vividly the 1990 World Series, and so so that would clearly be my favorite time as a Reds fan, because not unlike you, I kind of grew up on the baseball bunch and some of that stuff the earlier days, but it was a little bit past the heyday of the Big Red Machine.
Yeah. Well, we're roughly the same era, I think, there. And so, yeah, it looked for a while there at 1990, and then even they were competitive up through 95. It looked like, well, the Reds are going to always kind of be in the mix, and yeah, that's not been the way it was. Will, I guess since the 1990 World Series, maybe give some insight into what your experience as a Reds fan has been since then. Pretty frustrating at times, I'm sure.
Frustrating. I mean, I think 99 was a fun team. I think that's when they opened up, became Synergy Field at that time, I think. Thought that was a really fun place to watch a game at the time. And I just thought it was going to go up from there because we traded for Griffey, and I thought it was going to be a new era. And that's kind of where it kind of went off the wheels for me, or started to, I think, started feeling a little not really believing in the team so much, in the management and how they were doing things after, not really putting a team around Griffey. And then there was hope again when Castellini bought the team, thinking, oh, this is going to be different. This is going to change. New stadium. All of that was exciting. And I think, like you said, or Sydney said, around the late 2010s or 2010, 2012, those teams were really competitive. Didn't do much in the postseason. And then after that, it kind of fell off for me.
Yeah, 2000 is, and I'm sorry for this, Sydney, because when you're bored, that is the moment where I was the most excited, I think, that I've ever been as a Reds fan. I mean, after the 1990 World Series, I thought, oh, okay, this is fantastic. That was my favorite moment. But they had that 99 team that won 96 games and was such a fun team. And then they go out and get King Griffey Jr. So that's that's the point where I thought, you know what, this team is we're set up for some great things. And yeah, we didn't get them. And the 2010 to 2013 Reds were fun. They were fun. Again, sorry, Sydney, that this is the height of the last 2 decades. But you just have I shared what Will said about the kind of excitement when Castellini bought the team, because they said all the right things. Bob Castellini said all the right things. You may have noticed, and I'll ask you this one, Sydney. You may have noticed that Phil Castellini is not saying all the right things these days. I don't know if you noticed that.
No, he hasn't. I saw him on opening day because I was at the beginning of the parade, the opening day parade that they have in Cincinnati. I was right there. I saw him and Barry Larkin get in their red car, and I thought, you know what? I want to go up to him. I want to say something. And I'm like, you know what? But I also don't want to get banned from Great American Ballpark. So, and I have tickets to today's game. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. Not going to lie, I sort of regret that. But you know what? To each of their own. And yeah, he later that day had that infamous sort of interview with Mo Egger and just said some terrible things and sort of just started to dig his own grave, as I think.
Well, let's circle back to the billboard quickly again. I just like looking at it. I just gotta put it up there as often as I can. Pat, where were you you already established for everyone here, longtime Reds fan, hardcore Reds fan. You got the history, you got the bona fides, right? As they say. Where were you the day that you donated this campaign? What as a Reds fan, what were you feeling?
Exasperated. It kind of wits in, just accepting the fact that there isn't really a plan here, and let's face it, the kind of original position would be, hey, we're going to go the player development route, and we're going to, really develop from within. And, just I think accepting the realization that there isn't really a plan, there isn't a strong approach to player development, and any good organization begins with leadership, and when you see the leadership just trip over itself time and time again, you kind of get to this point of acceptance that, that probably needs to be a change.
Absolutely. So let's strike a blow for the Reds fan that doesn't have a voice and put up a billboard. Will, where were you? What was going through your head the days and weeks before this? You joined this campaign.
It was just, it started with, what they said, we're going to align payroll with expectations. And it was just like, oh, geez. And they just started trading guys away like Sonny Gray. And then the whole trade with Winker were, just dropping salary and not getting anything in return. And it's just, like Pat said, it's been all half measures. All of these teams in the 2000s have been half measures. They have never really stuck to any kind of, plan or development or anything. They try something, it doesn't work for a year, and they just give up and they try again and they try something different. It's just never going to be successful that way.
Yeah, it's so true. That's sort of where I was, with all this. We kind of laughed about it and joked about a billboard for a while. I'm not sure how it first came up, but it became a running joke. And then, the stuff with Wade Miley and Tucker Barnhart before the lockout, and then as soon as the lockout ended, trading away, Jesse Winker, and Sonny Gray, those are and Gino, Eugenio Suarez, who had not been good, but doing pretty well right now, but was one of my favorite players. I just, at that point we said, let's pull the trigger. Let's just do this thing. And if people want to donate, then great. If not, well, whatever. We had some fun with it. And the response was just blew me away. And so thanks to each of you and everyone that almost 200 Reds fans donated to this cause. What do you think, Sydney? Were you surprised that we actually made this thing happen?
Yeah. I've been following the podcast from its Red Leg Nation radio days for many years. And I was a Patreon supporter as well. And I've sort of known about the running joke about this. And you know what? We should get a billboard. And I saw that y'all were serious, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna step up and pay some for it too. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, my biggest thing, and the thing that really ticked me off the most about the offseason was the fact that they were not able to get a single thing for Wade Miley. And they decided, you know what? We're not going to pay possibly the $1 million to like even decline your option, or we're not even going to try to keep you around and try to shop you after the lockout and try to shop you after the deadline. No, we're just going to cut you. And you know what? You're going to get picked up by the Cubs for literally nothing. I still can't believe we couldn't have gotten a Nick Quintana, like a 26-year-old high A prospect for him. We couldn't have gotten anything. Like, I don't believe that for a second.
Oh, they could have. There's no question they could have. If they had more of a strategy than this, we have to cut payroll today.
Today is the key part.
Right. Yeah. We can't pick up that team option and then try to shop him around for something later on, because there's no question they could have moved Wade Miley. Oh, mercy. All right, you guys are depressing me. Let's talk.
This team
again. We try to laugh, but sometimes it's tough. Let's talk about this current team. I guess let me ask each of you this. Did you have any expectations coming off last year before all the transactions? Because they weren't a great team last year, but they had a winning record. A lot of fun guys. They were not that far from being a real team. Is that part? I guess the question is that part of why we all kind of crashed and burned with the team? Is because I had some expectation. I didn't expect the World Series winner, but I expect the team that would be able to compete for the National League Central. Pat, did you have any expectations, or how did that play into all this?
And I think the team was just really likable, right? You have a collection of very likable players. I mean, let's face it. If the measure that has to be met for people to be happy is you win the World Series, then most people are going to be really upset. But if you've got a likable team that's competitive day in and day out and has an honest chance to compete in its division and maybe make a little bit of noise. I mean, we saw what the Braves did last year, and the Braves struggled for a long time. And sometimes the stars just have to align at the right time. So there was that kind of hope and optimism going in, and then all of a sudden, like, man, I mean, you have these people who are, key contributors, likable people, and frankly, I mean, certainly not some sort of salary albatross. I mean, obviously, Gino, it would have been, he could have performed better, but he's doing fine now, right? So, yeah, you hate to see that, because a salary dump without a plan. I mean, you're not everybody's going to win by signing free agent after free agent after free agent. So if you're going to trade people away, then we probably better have a plan on how to recoup talent, how to develop talent. But seeing that there was an absence of a plan, and we were going to get rid of a significant chunk of, a team that was pretty easy to root for, was kind of depressing.
Yeah, I think I couldn't have said it better myself. And I'll toss it to you, Will, just to kind of discuss last year's team. It's so frustrating that they were, I call them the Rowdy Reds after Nick Castellanos, flexed on the Cardinals, and they were just a fun team to follow. And it was, it's kind of a preview of the frustration with this year's team, which is that's a team that had a winning record. And if Bob Castellano hadn't ordered them to give away 2 quality back of the bullpen relievers, Rosell Iglesias and Archie Bradley, before the season, literally for nothing more than money reasons, it's a team that really has a real shot at the playoffs, because what was last year's Achilles heel? The bullpen. So similar frustrations for last year, but it was, I don't know, it just they were extremely likable. Will, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they could have been, a respectable team, could have competed for the division, and you get in, you never know in the playoffs. And they had some young guys coming up this year with, Hunter Green and Lodolo. You never would have known. You never known what that team could have been if they would have kept these guys together. Could have been something special.
Yeah, even one more year. Let's run it back one more year. I don't know about bringing Castellanos back. I wish they could have, but that was a lot to ask. But the rest of those guys could have been here. And then you're adding, some of the guys that are bullpen now, like Dari Moreta, who's didn't get really much of a shot in that last year, but looks like he's going to be a good arm eventually. And then you add the Greens and the Lodolos, and you get Tyler Stevens with a little bit more of a role. Jose Barrera maybe at some point. You got Nick Senzel being, I don't know, Nick Senzel. I'm biased when it comes to Nick Senzel, so I better not say anything. But it's frustrating, wasn't it, Sydney?
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, Pat, last year's team was so likable. And the biggest blow for me was the fact that they got rid of Winker and Gino, the 2 of the most likable guys on the team. Like, not only were they both good players, Gino not necessarily last year, but he has a track record, and he's doing so with the Mariners. But they were both so likable, and this team was so fun to watch. Even through their heartbreak and watching the bullpen collapse, and Heath Hembree and Brad Brock. And
hold on, we're not supposed to mention those names on this show. I'm sorry.
Just reliever after reliever come through and pitch for us and not do well, or do well for week and a half, and then go back to being 30 plus years old and not being that great. And we were just so good, and it looked like we were on the cusp of something. If maybe we could add maybe a reliever or 2, or if we would have kept Rosell Iglesias and Bradley, things would look up. I mean, I understood getting rid of, maybe not bringing back Castellanos. I didn't like it, but I understood it. And also the same with Barnhart. But this team was just so fun to watch. And you had to think that the Brewers weren't going to repeat 3 Cy Young winner type pitchers again. And we were going to be in the mix of it. I mean, we would have been in the playoffs if it wasn't for a historic winning streak, all-timer by the Cardinals. And I mean,
Ugh.
literally, just get in. As you said for a while, Chad, just get in. Just sneak on in.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going to happen once you get on in.
Well, and again, we mentioned the Braves a couple of times. If you can just get in that tournament at the end of the season, you have a real shot, because that's just the nature of baseball. Oh boy, I guess it kind of goes back to what we've all been saying in terms of the lack of a plan. It was so obvious how they changed course just on the out of nowhere. They get rid of these guys. They trade off Jesse Winker to get rid of Suarez's contract, but then they go sign Tommy Pham, who's making the same as Jesse Winker, and it's not as good as Jesse Winker. They literally give Wade Miley away for free, and then the next day, that's not literally the next day, but not too long thereafter, owners like, oh, we're getting hammered. We got to go get somebody. They go get Mike Minor. They trade for Mike Minor, who is Wade Miley, but not quite as good, and makes them pretty much the same. It's embarrassing. And but Reds fans have never really gotten on the Castellanis like this. I've never seen anything like this in Reds fan. I guess I don't know how many of you all are Bengals fans, but the Bengals have had their ownership has gotten some hate from fans, and I wonder if maybe, and I'll let anybody who wants to jump in on this. You're welcome to if you want to. I wonder how much the Bengals' success this past year has played into the frustration with Castellani. Anybody? Am I off base?
I think so for sure. I mean, I think people were giving the Browns such a hard time over the Bengals, and they stepped it up this past year and actually did things, and now they're building an indoor facility for the team. And I think now people don't have the anger at the Bengals ownership so much anymore. Now they're looking to direct it somewhere else, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's Pat, you're a Bengals fan as well?
Yes,
yeah, no?
And the whole thing, I think, was almost like the perfect storm, right? I mean, clearly with social media and podcasts and everything else, the platform is there for people to voice their frustration when it's kind of boiling over. And the Bengals' success certainly, I think, magnified things. But then you also have an ownership group that made a lot of promises and are pretty visible. So you can probably maybe get by with pinching pennies and making bad decisions if you're not so front and center and almost combative whenever you get any sort of pushback. But when you're putting yourself out there and maybe trying to take the George Steinbrenner-ish approach to, hey, I'm going to make the decisions. I'm not going to let the player development staff, the general manager, anybody else actually do their job. Well, then you're going to take the heat for it.
I've said it a couple of times. It sucks. The Castellanis are Steinbrenners without the success. Yep. I mean, they want to be involved, but they're so clueless. Yeah, I like the idea that it's kind of a confluence of events. They've been building up after the promises, and then just the lack of success and no sustained plan. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, wait a minute, if Mike Brown can figure this thing out. And listen, not only were they successful this year, but they've gone out in free agency and made a splash. I mean, they're really genuinely trying to compete for the first time that I can remember in years. And then at the very same time, the Reds are tearing it all down, tearing a fun team, a not bad team, tearing it to the ground for reasons. I don't know. I see Joe Burrow back there behind you, Sydney. I bet you've got a comment.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing is the fact that Mike Brown decided he didn't want to be involved in the day-to-day operations of the Bengals anymore. And he's not as heavily involved anymore. And it's now Katie Blackburn, his daughter, and other people who are just doing their jobs. And you know what? What a novel idea that is. You leave the football and you leave the sports to the people who are paid to do it. And that's their job. What a novel concept. Cough, cough, Bob. Phil Castellini, cough. And they just won't. And it just happened that Mike Brown decided he was going to do it right when we could draft Joe Burrow, other shoulder. But Yeah, right when we could draft him, and then we've made so many good draft decisions in the past couple of years, very good signings, and it's just all come together. I mean, the city has been starving for good sports because, I mean, before this last year, it had been 30 years before like very good success. And it's just doesn't make any sense. And finally, like the playoff game against the Raiders, we sold it out. That's what would happen with the Reds if they just were consistent with their team philosophy and got us a winner. I mean, it's not that hard.
There's no
And
doubt in my mind. Yeah,
I'm sure, like Brown could tell them, just put the money up front now, and then watch the money come later with the post game success and all of the people who buy jerseys and merchandise. The money will come later. Just put it up front now.
Yeah, and there's no question in my mind that the Reds fans would be there if they were going to put a competitive product on the field. Let me ask you a question I meant to ask earlier, but I think it's a fun one to talk about. Pat, I'll ask you first. Who's your favorite Red of all time and why?
You know, I would have said Johnny Bench for as long as I can remember, but Joey Votto's fast closing. You know, I think just the way he's gone about his business, the way that he has been adaptable in a rapidly changing game. You know, I would probably have to say he may have taken the mantle.
Is Joey going to recover this year? Is he going to come back? Is he going to start hitting like Joey again?
I would think so. I mean, he has probably been the most adaptable baseball player I have ever seen, and I have confidence he'll figure it out. I don't know that he's going to go on the tear that he went on last year, but is he going to be a solid contributing player again very soon? I'm sure of it.
Yeah, after last year, I've determined I'm never going to doubt Joey Votto again. I'm just going to accept that he knows more about hitting than I do. What's, I guess, funny, I don't know if it's funny or not, but in the latest issue of Cincinnati Magazine, I've got a piece that I was wanted to write about Joey Votto, and so they gave me some space, a feature column to write about him, and it's in the print magazine now. It'll be online in a couple weeks, I think, but my editor kept pushing me. Come on, need a hot take, and they wanted to name the piece Joey Votto is the greatest Red of all time. And I was like, well, okay, I'm not sure I 100% believe that, but I think I can make the argument. And so I do that, and now it comes out, and it's on newsstands now, and he's hitting, 150 or something. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Will, who's your favorite player?
I think I'm going to have to agree with Pat and go with Joey Votto. Growing up, I probably would have said Barry Larkin, but I think he's probably the greatest player that I've seen play as a Red in my lifetime. And to be able to see someone play, what looks like going to be potentially their whole career with Cincinnati and has a very good chance of being a Hall of Famer, that's something special to see.
Yeah, and it's, that's, again, as Reds fans, we've not experienced a ton of success. But, for me, Larkin was my guy always, because that was a guy that even the current generation is getting to see with Joey Votto, a guy you see from beginning to end, wearing that Reds uniform, and Johnny Bench, even the other one that was mentioned here by Pat, right? These are guys that were there their whole career. There's something special about those guys. And right now, for me, it's still Larkin, my all-time favorite player, but I have a feeling that by the time it's over, it's going to be Joey Votto. Or I haven't decided. Maybe at least Alberto Bonilla. I can't decide. So, Sydney, I'm guessing yours has got to be Joey Votto. Am I right?
I mean, I want to say Joey Votto, but I don't want to also say what everyone else is saying. So I'm going to go off script a little bit and go with the Reds starting shortstop, no matter what anyone else says, Kyle Farmer.
The GOAT, Kyle Farmer.
The GOAT. You want to talk about the best Red of all time, Kyle Farmer.
Now that, my friends, is a hot take. That's hotter than my Joey Votto take. Well, on the current team, we're going to leave Joey out of it, and we'll leave Kyle Farmer out of it as well. Who's your favorite player on the current Reds team, Pat?
I love the way Jonathan India plays the game. As a former college baseball coach, that would have been the guy that you just wanted on your team every day of the week because plays hard, energizes everybody. Leaves it all on the field every day. So definitely Jonathan India.
Great choice. And as a matter of fact, India is the guy that I've said, if the Reds had just gone all in and really try to put a competitive team on the field, Jonathan India would be, every kid in the Cincinnati area would be wearing a Jonathan India shirt. I mean, he would be a superstar, legend around town, just because I don't know, the hair that I'm jealous of, and the way he plays, all out, and just it seems like he's having fun all the time. And he's still going to be the favorite player of the next generation of Reds fans, but it's not like some of these other guys. What about you, Will? Do you like anyone on this current team?
I'm going to say probably Hunter Green, just because, the potential that he represents. He could be something really special, and, to see someone throwing that kind of gas out there is something to see. So he's the one I watch right now. And, being in Tampa, I don't get to see a lot of games. But, I try to follow them and seeing how guys are doing. And I really try to follow the young guys that have some potential. And that's one that I keeping an eye on.
Yeah, that's one thing that, again, there's no way this front office has a plan, right? But if they really were to follow through on a plan, they actually have some young guys that you can make a core of a team. 5 consecutive first-round draft picks, from starting with Tyler Stevenson in 2015, and then let's see, it was Tyler Stevenson, Nick Senzel, Hunter Green, Jonathan India, Nick Lodolo, all 5 on this roster, and the two after that, the last 2 years were Matt Mclean, the shortstop out of UCLA, who's just tearing it up right now. Looks like he's going to be a stud. Austin Hendrick was a high school outfielder that is playing very well this year, but struggled a little bit last year. But anyway, you have kind of this core, and then some of the international guys like Jose Barrero and Ellie De La Cruz is coming along soon. So you kind of have a core if you could trust this current management to put the pieces around them, I guess. So I'm like you. I love watching these young guys, because that's really all we have to hang our hats on right now. My favorite player, before we get to Sydney, on this current team, I'm going to not name Votto. I'm not going to name Farmer, because Kyle Farmer. I'm also not going to name Senzel, because I'm biased with Nick Senzel. But the guy I love is Tyler Stevenson. I think Tyler Stevenson is going to play in more All-Star games than any one of these other young guys. That's my opinion. I'm that high on him. So, Sydney, who's your favorite player besides Kyle Farmer?
Aside from Kyle Farmer, I'm going to have to agree with you. Tyler Stevenson is my favorite. And I mean, it's just so hard playing not shortstop. He doesn't play shortstop. Catching and playing that every day. And also, like, not only doing that, but also sometimes playing first base, sometimes playing the DH. I mean, he's expected to play every day for us and not really get a break. I can't think of many other catchers that do that. Maybe Salvador Perez and Contreras for the Cubs, and that's about it. Everyone else has like a firm backup that they switch with, like he did last year with Barnhart. And he just plays so hard and is so good at it. And him and India are our future on offense. And then Barrero too, hopefully. And like it's so fun watching them.
Could not agree more. All right, again, I'm darting around a little bit. There were a few questions I wanted to ask, and someone that did this for a living might want to write these things down so we stay on script. But it is what it is. What's your earliest memory as a Reds fan, each of you? And if you can't pinpoint earliest memory, maybe the first time you remember going to a Reds game. Maybe talk about that later. I'm not really sure what my earliest memory is, but I do remember the first time I walked into Riverfront Stadium. And I agree, later on when they opened up Synergy Field at 99, oh man, I was like, this is the greatest stadium I've ever seen in my life. They put the real grass in, and it was, they took out a chunk up because they were building Great American Ballpark out in left field. I thought that's gorgeous. But now when I was 8 years old and walked into Riverfront Stadium for the first time and saw that beautiful, beautiful AstroTurf, I thought that was the greatest thing on earth. So, Pat, do you have an earliest memory or something like that?
I remember watching Tom Seaver pitch Johnny Bench catch on television, and mimicking Seaver's delivery all the way to dragging my knee on the carpet and everything else when I was probably 5, 6 years old. And, sadly, I never became much of a pitcher, but those were some of my fondest early memories.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Pat, I'm a little disappointed you never were as good as Tom Seaver.
Yeah.
Almost no one was.
Yeah.
Will, do you have an early memory?
I'm going to say it's probably the 1990 team. I remember, I think I was in 3rd grade, and for Halloween, I dressed up like Chris Sabo by putting on a hat and some swimming goggles and a t-shirt. And that was Halloween in 3rd grade for me. So that was a pretty fond memory.
Yeah, that's the type of thing that at that age can really kind of pull you into a lifetime of this nonsense. But and I wonder how many Reds fans have not been able to experience that. But that was pretty exciting times. Did you other family members big Reds fans? I mean, was it something that was around you all the time, or?
My dad came to the area in the 70s, so he was a fan of the Big Red Machine, and so he kind of got me into it when I was young. So that's how I started.
Yeah, that's a familiar tale, right? I don't even want to ask this question of Sydney because Pat and I are listening to these and we're like, oh gosh, 3rd grade in 1990. We're thinking, oh come on. And then Sydney's going to tell us, oh, my earliest Reds fan was when I was 7 years old. It was 2019 or something. What's your earliest memory?
So I'm going to say, like, my earliest memory I can remember is Devin Mesoraco hitting a walk-off grand slam several years ago. But I mean, honestly, my earliest memories with baseball were with the Dragons. Growing up in Dayton, and we would always get tickets to go to Dragons games, and those were so fun. And then just following them up to the Reds, and
yeah. Well, I tell you what, talk about a fun time at the old ball yard. The Dayton Dragons do it right. I haven't been there in a few years now, but every time I've been, it's been just fantastic. Gang, I guess let's toss a wild card out here. What else do you want to talk about? Anything you want to say? Anything in particular you're just dying to get off your chest? And you got an audience now, a tiny audience. There are 12 people, including my mom. Pat, anything about the Reds that you want to say, or just feel free to pontificate for a little while.
Oh boy, anything about the Reds? Well, I mean, I think it's something that hopefully the ownership of a team recognizes. There are people out here that have decade-long memories that it shapes their childhood. I mean, we've got people who for decades later from those memories are wearing Reds garb and talking about this after being fans that long. I mean, that's the kind of impact something like this can have. And if you go and put together a solid plan, a solid organization, you're building lifetime customers. So when they're saying, hey, we need to go make this a better business, it's not real complicated as to how to do it. Put together a good product, put it in front of people, and you can build a pretty strong allegiance.
Yeah, I talked a little bit with Zach Buchanan, who used to be the Reds beat writer for the Inquirer, and now he's covering the Arizona Diamondbacks for the Athletic, and he'll tell you it's such a different thing being with the Diamondbacks fan base, because they don't have this generational thing that Reds fans have, that people take the Reds so seriously because their dad did, or their grandfather did, or their mom, whoever, their family for generations have been Reds fans, and it's just something Diamondbacks don't have, and so it's kind of a key that you can unlock to have this incredible passionate fan base if you will just show them a little respect, which we have not got. I think you're exactly right, Pat. Will, anything you want to get off your chest?
Just kind of add what you said. I've lived in Tampa the last 4 or 5 years, and the Rays have been a very successful team. But living down here, you wouldn't know it. I mean, they don't have a huge fan base or following here, and a lot of it has to do with ownership issues, with stadium issues. Even though they're putting a competitive team on the field, and I just think with the history the Reds have and just the way the fans are, that there's no reason this team franchise couldn't be like the Cardinals are. There's no reason whatsoever they couldn't have the same kind of success and the same kind of passion.
Yeah, what's the difference? The Cardinals have ownership and management that are competent, stick to a plan, and execute on that plan. I mean, the Cardinals owner lives in Cincinnati, for crying out loud. You're right, and that's what I've kind of referenced a few times, but I hate to say it in reference to the Cardinals. But everybody talks about how St. Louis is a baseball town, and yeah, it's true. Cincinnati is as well, and you just have to show that you care a little bit. And like I said, you kind of unlock this Reds fandom. Sydney, what about you? Anything you're burning to talk about?
I mean, my biggest thing is the fact that, as you say, like I'm a part of a lost generation. My grandparents had the Big Red Machine. That is how they fell in love with the Reds. And like, whenever I talk to my grandma about the Reds, that's what she talks about all the time. And my dad had the 90 Reds as well as the 95 and 99 Reds, and they were just so good. Versus me, what do I have? I have nothing. I have Yasiel Puig and Amir Garrett trying to fight other teams like the Pirates, and that's really it. That's like my favorite memory as a Reds fan is watching them do that because it's fun. But I mean, we don't have much. My generation doesn't, and I just want something to cling to and be like, this is why I'm a Reds fan versus I was born into this. I was born
Right,
into
exactly.
it, and I can't leave.
Well, and that's my last question. I actually wanted to ask each of you. After all this, we've talked about how deeply we care about this team. We're sitting here talking on a Monday night about this dumb franchise that's like 3-25 or something, whatever their record is. They sold off the whole team, but here we are talking about them because we kind of came together over a shared passion. Sorry, I had to show that one more time. And so that's the question. Is there something that could happen that at some point you just say, that's it. It's just not worth my time to follow this team? Is there a time that you may be a Reds fan, but I'm not going to pay any attention until they decide they're going to win? What do you think, Pat?
At this point, having kind of passed on some of this allegiance and passion to my own boys, and
Are you feeling guilt over that like I am?
a little bit, right? I mean, we've got time spent with Joey Votto. My younger son was out on the field playing catch with Billy Hamilton, and it's like, so they've started to embrace that too. So I would say that my goal is more to outlast the current Reds ownership and lock arms with the next group that hopefully has a better plan.
There we go. I like that. What do you think, Will? Is there going to become a time when you're just like, this is not worth it?
I mean, I've already gotten to the point where I don't watch too many of the games anymore. I mean, partially because of where I'm living and partially because of the product on the field and pace of play issues with baseball these last few years. But I don't think so. I mean, they would have to move the team for me to completely give up.
Hear me out. What if they moved the team to Tampa?
That would be interesting.
That'd be all right. I don't know.
I don't think it's going to happen, but
no, I don't think so. Sydney, what is you're still a fan thick and thin, despite pretty much garbage franchise your entire life. So, is there something that could push you over the edge?
I mean, realistically, the only thing they could really do to do that is if they are to decline Joey Votto's option next year, because I believe it's an option for next year, because he has done so much for this franchise. And to not pick it up, even if he is still batting one whatever, like that's a huge slap in the face to the one guy who has stuck with you through thick and thin and would never leave this franchise. And to just, if they treated him like that and were to decline it, no, that's it. They obviously don't care about the people who have been here forever. I'm out.
Well, we've been doing this podcast since 2007, if you can believe it, which is crazy. And I very nearly gave it up after last season, and really after the Reds when they went into 2021 and really didn't try to improve a team that had a shot to be a real team, And I kind of got talked into sticking around. And then after this past year, I thought, well, we'll just try to have some fun. And we leaned into the billboard nonsense, and But I'm at the point in my life where I spend a lot of time talking about this team and thinking about this team and watching this team. And at some point, I'm like, gosh, what am I doing? I'm not paying as close attention as I was, which I probably shouldn't say if I'm trying to get people to listen to me when I analyze the Reds. But I'm just not. They're just not fun to watch often. But what brings me back, I guess, are some of those individual players. The Hunter Greens and the Jonathan Indias and the Tyler Stevensons and I don't know, like Al Pacino and The Godfather. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Well, guys, this was fun. Anyone have any final thoughts you want to say? I gave you the wild card question already, but anything else you want to say? Jump in. If not, forever hold your peace.
Luis Alberto Bonilla deserves to be in the Reds Hall of Fame.
There we go. Luis Alberto Bonilla. There's your hot take for tonight. Pat, you're going to say something?
Just appreciate you having us on and being able to share some thoughts and share with other Reds fans.
Absolutely. Will, anything?
No, thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun, and it's good to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun, and maybe we'll have like a reunion episode here after the season to talk about after the Reds win the playoff series at the end of this season. Right? We'll come back on and talk about how wrong we were, I guess. Pat, Will, Sydney, thank you all so much for supporting the campaign. And it's this hashtag sell the team Bob thing. It kind of took on a life of its own. And we actually got a response from Phil Castellini, not just us, but, the whole sell the team Bob movement that's got people wearing bags on their heads and flying banners across I was going to mention it here. I don't have the precise numbers yet, but we actually raised more money for the billboard than it cost. And so I'm going to have a precise amount of what that is. I got to decide what to do, whether we just want to donate that to the Reds Community Fund or something. But one thought was to put it towards get a plane and flying a banner around Great American Ballpark for 3 hours of game night. And then someone beat me to it. So I don't know what to figure out. We may still do it again. But anyway, guys, really, really enjoyed talking to you tonight. This was a lot of fun. And I guess this is sort of the proof that no matter how bad it gets on the field, we can sort of commiserate with our shared shared pain, I guess. Misery loves company. Maybe that's what it is. Pat, Will, Sydney, thank you all so much for joining us. This is the Riverfront. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. I'm not going to go into all that because, really, who cares? So thanks again.